They say there are some truths the earth itself cannot hold. Truths so dark that even the wind whispers them in fear. And on one Sunday morning in Lagos, a madman, yes, a madman, ragged, barefoot, and clutching a sack that stank of mystery, walked straight into a crowded church. At first, people laughed. "Who let him in? Chase him out!" But the laughter died the moment the madman pointed a crooked finger at the pulpit. And in a voice that did not sound entirely human, he shouted, "Pastor, should I tell them what you did last night?" "I tell them." The congregation froze. Mothers clutched their children. Ushers hesitated. The pastor, who was always bold, always thundering fire and brimstone, suddenly looked pale, like a man staring at his own grave. The madman's sack dropped to the floor with a heavy thud, and from inside came a sound, like muffled crying. The church erupted in chaos. Some wanted to run, some wanted to stay, but everyone wanted to know, what secret could a madman possibly know about their pastor? And why? Did the pastor himself look terrified? What happened that day would leave scars on the town forever, because sometimes the people we trust to lead us are the ones hiding the darkest of sins. This is the story of the madman who entered a church and revealed the pastor's secret. Lagos was a city of contrasts. By day, a place of dreams where men wore fine suits and women wrapped themselves in shining lace. By night, a place of shadows where deals were struck in corners no light dared enter. And in the heart of the city stood the fire of Zion ministry, led by Pastor Emmanuel Okoro, a man everyone respected. He was eloquent, charismatic, and powerful. People said when he prayed, even demons trembled. His church overflowed every Sunday, and the offerings poured like a river. But outside those polished walls, there was another figure people knew well, the madman of Broad Street. He was tall, gaunt, with wild hair, and eyes that seemed to see beyond flesh. His sack was his constant companion, bulging, tied with rope, and always humming with mystery. Children feared him, adults mocked him, but no one dared touch his sack. They said he was mad because he spoke truths people didn't want to hear. He would point at businessmen and mutter, "Thief." He would stare at women and whisper, "Witch." Sometimes those he named fell sick or lost their wealth. Sometimes they simply disappeared. But no one expected that his path would cross with Pastor Emmanuel's. The Sunday it happened was meant to be a celebration. The church was packed beyond measure. Drums thundered, choirs sang, and the pastor stood in his white robe, ready to deliver a sermon about holiness and light, and that was when the doors swung open. The madman entered. His sack dragged on the polished floor, leaving a dark stain behind it. His laughter echoed against the high ceilings, sending shivers down spines. Ushers rushed to stop him, but something held them back, something in his eyes. He walked straight to the altar. The pastor froze. "Pastor Emmanuel," the madman said, his voice hoarse but clear, "shall I tell them what you were doing in the graveyard last night?" The church gasped. Some laughed nervously. Graveyard? Surely it was nonsense. But the pastor's trembling hands betrayed him. For the first time, the people saw not their fearless shepherd, but a man caught in a net. The congregation erupted. "Graveyard? What's he talking about? Pastor, say something!" But Pastor Emmanuel only swallowed hard, his lips quivering. The madman took another step, dragging his sack closer to the pulpit. "You preach holiness by day, but by night you kneel before the bones of the dead. Shall I show them what you carry in your hand when the moon rises?" The pastor shouted, "Enough! This is madness!" But the madman laughed. "Madness? Then why does your heart pound like a drum? Why do your knees shake as if thunder walks in your blood?" 2 ushers tried to grab him, but he flung open the sack, and the ushers froze in terror. Inside were bones, human bones. The congregation screamed. Some ran for the doors, others clung to each other in disbelief. The madman raised one long, yellowed bone into the air. "Do you recognize this, Pastor? Or should I tell them whose grave you opened last night?" Pastor Emmanuel fell to his knees. The truth was spilling. For months, He had lived a double life. By day, the mighty man of God. By night, a desperate soul chasing power in the graveyard. He had bargained with spirits, using bones and blood to grow his church, to keep the offerings flowing, to make the world see him as a man of fire. But now, before the very people who adored him, his sins stood naked. The madman walked slowly around him, circling like a predator. You took oaths with spirits. You swore never to be exposed. But heaven has spoken, Pastor. Today your mask is broken. The congregation murmured in horror. Mothers cried. Elders shook their heads. And then the madman bent low and whispered, "Shall I also tell them what happened to the child?" At that, the pastor let out a scream that did not sound human. The church was in chaos. People pushed, cried, and prayed aloud. But the madman's voice cut through it all like a knife. "Yes, the child!" he thundered. "The child who went missing last month, the one they searched for in vain. Shall I show them where you buried him, Pastor?" Gasps filled the air. The pastor collapsed, clutching his robe. His secret was laid bare. That missing child. He had been the sacrifice to seal Pastor Emmanuel's covenant with the underworld. The madman lifted his sack again. This time he pulled out a small, blood-stained shoe. The church wailed. Women fainted. Men shouted curses. The pastor crawled on the floor, weeping, begging for mercy. But the madman's eyes blazed. "You fed on the innocent to build your empire. You made the altar of God a playground for spirits of death. And today, judgment has come." With that, the madman slammed the bone and the shoe onto the altar. The church shook as if thunder rolled through it. Light flickered. Some swore they saw shadows fleeing the walls. Pastor Emmanuel screamed one last time, and then fell silent. His body lay motionless, as if life itself had been snatched away. The madman turned, his sack now empty. "The truth is never hidden forever," he said softly. And then, just as suddenly as he had entered, he walked out, leaving silence heavier than death behind him. For days, the city buzzed with the story. Some said the madman was no ordinary man, but an angel sent to expose evil. Others said he was the very spirit of truth, walking the earth in disguise. The church never reopened. The members scattered, ashamed that they had followed blindly, giving their money, their loyalty, their souls, to a man who was nothing but a wolf in sheep's clothing. And Pastor Emmanuel? His name was never spoken with honor again. His grave was dug quickly, without ceremony, for no one wanted to linger where his body lay. As for the madman, he vanished. Some claimed they saw him near the market, laughing. Others swore he disappeared into the forest. But no one dared to chase him, because they had learned a lesson that day. The lesson was simple. Not every man who shouts hallelujah is a man of God. Some hide darkness behind holy garments. Some build altars not for heaven, but for themselves. And sometimes it takes a voice from the margins, yes, even the voice of a madman, to remind us that truth may sleep, but it never dies. So remember this: beware of blind loyalty. Question what you follow, for evil often wears a crown of light.